As a chess player, one of the best feelings is going on a winning streak undefeated. Oh, it just feels so good. Well, I'm going on an absolute tear at the moment. My online rapid rating on chess.com is at 1845, and I have won 8 consecutive games. I have been undefeated 8 games in a row. If you were to look at my profile with no context, you might think I'm cheating, because this is what cheater profiles look like. But I promise you, I have not been cheating, and we'll see throughout these games, there were moments where I was definitely not playing like Stockfish. But hey, let's hop into it. I want to walk through these games nice and quick for you. I don't want to go too far in depth. I don't want to bore you, put you to sleep, but I do want to give you an overview of all of these games here and kind of show you what a winning streak around 1800 looks like. Also, the sun is right there, so there's this like streak of sunshine. Just don't mind that, pretend it doesn't exist. Okay. Now, first game I'm going to show you, you see my rating at the start of this winning streak had dipped. It was 1793. I was tilted for a while, so I think that kind of helped, with these wins because I started so low, lower than, I guess, my playing strength kind of equalizes that. And you see here I'm playing against a 1682. With the white pieces, we open with e4 and we have a Sicilian, and black responds d5. I take it, the queen comes out, and I play d4. Totally happy to get an isolated queen's pawn position here. So I play, e6, knight f3. I'm just developing, bishop e2, get my pieces out, castle, and, pretty standard opening here, nothing too crazy. I do get the isolated queen's pawn, which is nice for me because my knight is going to have a nice easy time getting to c3, boot the queen a little bit. We have that here. The queen goes to a5, a3, looking to play b4. Right, and that happens. Kick the queen again. So now I've won 2 tempi on the queen. One with a developing move, knight c3, and I win another tempo while gaining space. So this is great. The queen drops back to c7, and I start seeing tactics in the air. I do. Now, it's probably better to play like rook c1. I can't remember. Yeah, I think I played queen c2 because I also had like bishop d3 ideas to go this way. But I started seeing the knight can jump maybe into b5, hit the queen, and also this knight might be pinned because this queen is undefended on c7, so if I can move the knight, which I do, then, b5 might be a threat, although my opponent played a6, so that's not quite a thing. But after knight a4, I'm trying to get into c5 maybe, so my opponent plays b6, also looking to get their bishop out to the long diagonal. But now, the knight is pinned, and it just lost the defender of the pawn here, so it's weaker. And I jump in knight e5. Let's go. Knight plops in the center of the board, attacking the pinned piece, so black has to defend it. Okay, let's attack it again. Now, you see, this isn't correct. What I should do is move the rook first to add this pressure onto the pinned piece, because if bishop here, he actually has this knight d5 intercepting. But hey, let's just see how this unfolds. I keep adding more and more pressure, and eventually after rook d6, bishop f4, I just win with all the exchanges here, because after knight takes c6, it's a discovered attack on the rook. So after bishop takes, I win the exchange here, and it's more than that, because if you take back here, then I just take on c6. And I am up 5 points of material. I am up a full rook. So this is pretty cool. What ended up happening is he dropped the bishop back and then just resigned because, if I was just going to take here, and if you take, you get mated, pretty much. If you go here, then there's bishop c6, right? So there's always tactics on the back rank, and yeah, so he resigned. Let's go into the game 2. Game 2, here we go, playing with the black pieces, 1802, the rating's climbing up, and we got d4, d5, let's see, a queen's gambit decline, knight c3, knight f6, this is all standard here, bishop g4, bishop e7, and an early queen b3. Early queen b3, this is fascinating because my light squared bishop has not left its home square, so this b7 pawn is perfectly well defended, and this d5 pawn is also, always well defended. So I just castle, ignoring queen b3 entirely, and then white long castles here, which is absolutely crazy. Why would you do that? Your king is so open here on the queen side, and these pawns can march forward, and I'm gonna play c5, open it up, get a rook over there, and attack the king. So long castles is wild, especially with no other pieces developed here. So I immediately start chopping. I say, okay, let's open up the position, try and get to that king. So I play a6. Remember in the last game when I played was it a3 b4 to win a tempo on the queen. Well, now I'm playing a6 b5 to win tempi, and the queen has to drop back. Also, this trade for the knight was absolutely horrible because now I have the bishop pair and pressure on the central pawn, which I promptly win. Now, I'm not worried about this pin here because there's no way to really exploit it. He can try. He develops, puts some pressure on the bishop, but c5. Pawn marches forward, and now my, my queen can get out this way. My knight can freely develop behind the pawns, and also I can play e5 to glue the bishop in. Now this, I didn't see there was knight takes e5, or maybe I did, because I had planned this, and I thought this just picks up the knight because of the fork. But what I did miss was this move f4, which defends the knight. Which, is unfortunate for me because it also attacks the queen, and it's annoying that I don't have any pieces developed. But hey, I'm still much better just because the white king is much weaker than mine, and I've got the nice bishop here and the bishop pair, bishop e6 coming with tempo. So I just drop the queen back, and then I take the knight to damage the white pawn structure here in the center, and I plan on picking off those pawns one by one. The queen goes to e6, and that attacks the a2 pawn. Now, this was a bad move because rook d6 comes, and I don't have a great way to deal with it. I got to go here, and then we just start trading. Now, I'm still, I think, better because these pawns are still very weak, and I have a 3-on-2 situation going on, but maybe lacking a bit in development. The knight is going to struggle a bit to get out, but instead, if you take here, then the pieces for white are getting in, and then my king starts to feel a little sad that there are no pieces ready to defend because this check does nothing. You can try all this. You can even win a pawn with check, but that's not very good because the bishop comes out, and now you are the one getting attacked by all of the white army. So that would have been no good, but instead he gets scared and defends with b3. So now I get to develop and just win a pawn here on e5. There we go, one pawn down, and I give this check, drop the knight back because I don't want to, deal with any funny business of like, oh, if I tried to go here to trade queens, then you just lose because of the fork. So I gave this check instead, drop the knight back, then I push this pawn up to c4 to open up the white king even further. We do just that, and I trade the queens. I shouldn't do this. I should take and not worry about, the rook getting active because there's like knight f4 and you've got like things looming. You can maybe drop back this way, and also eventually you get the rook to the c file. But instead I was like, you know what? I'm up a pawn, so let me trade queens. He doesn't, so I do. And now I'm better again because I get bishop d5, and after pawn takes, I can just pile up on this pawn here a little bit, give the check. And now notice I am under a minute. My opponent has 8 minutes, so struggling a little on the clock, which is why this gets a little bit messy, but he does blunder a fork. The knight drops back. Yes, it attacks the pawn here, but it also threatens the fork. He missed the fork, and I just pick up the material, and the rest, we win. So let's hop into game 3, rating 1810 against a 1774, and we got the white pieces with a French defense. Knight d2, knight f6. Now knight f6 is it's weird because I just kicked the knight back, which is fine. I mean, I think this is like this is a thing, but what happens next is not, because imagine the French, usually, you might get something like this. Let's say we go e5 in the advance, for example, maybe c5, c3, knight c6, putting pressure on the d pawn. Now, usually here the knight is coming out to e7 and maybe f5 eventually. And also, maybe like a queen d6, bishop d3, bishop d7, castles, and then like boom, boom, boom. And you can even like go for something, this is the Milner-Berry gambit. But like, anyway, I'm getting off track. The knight f6 right away just allows me to boot the knight. My center's defended, and he's really overextending a bit here on the queen side. I just reroute my knight, get my bishop to help defend the center. He pushes b4, right? And h6, not castling the king because the center's locked, and he feels like he can do that. But the problem is just the lack in development. Queen b3, and I do go a bit the wrong direction here. I go to the queen side for play. I should be heading more over to the king side, maybe queen e2, or, keep it a bit more central, but instead I go a little bit wayward out here with my queen because I see my bishop can fit snugly in here to b5, but he just drops the knight back, and the knights have this weird way of defending each other, you know, and then the knight, like, this is so strange. But hey, I trade the rook, and now I just reroute back over to the king side. Now I should take this. Apparently this is absolutely crushing. There's no way to defend yourself here if you're black. You can try knight g6, but that just, there's no way to stop this. And if you go like here thinking you stop that mate, then there's this mate, which is wild. So you can easily get mated there, but instead I play knight h5, looking to maybe sacrifice this way, or maybe like take first and then get in somehow. But he plays g6, allowing me to play knight f6 anyway. Takes. He pushes, and the bishop just gets into g7. Look at this, glued in here right in the king's face, and queen h6, and black resigns because there's no way to stop knight g5. Because let's say you try, I don't know, like rook c7. Like the knight on a7 is not doing anything, right? There's no way for the knight to get over here because he's too clumsy. But knight g5, and I'm threatening queen h7 mate, and if you take the knight, then there's queen h8 mate because of the bishop on g7. So that's another game down, and let's hop into game 4. Okay, about halfway through. Rating here, 1818. That's a nice number. We got 1783 as my opponent. Playing the black pieces, we get another Queen's Gambit declined, another QGD. Knight c3, knight f6, and we had this before. We had this in this game. This was game 2 that I showed you. It was the same, except here queen b3 was the move on move 5. But instead what happens here is knight f3, which makes a bit more sense. Castles, e3. Okay, all of this is making a bit more sense than that other QGD we had. The bishop comes out. But, you know, I get to make the bishop move twice, so look at me, I'm so smart, right? h6 boots the bishop back, you know, just asking if he wants to take, give me the bishop pair. He doesn't, that's fine. I play c5, counter striking in the center, and I play b6, looking to fianchetto my bishop here on the long diagonal. I do just that, and I jump my knight into d5. Happy to trade this, because my knight's pretty good. It's jumping into b4, hitting the bishop. Now he does drop back, and this battery here has the potential to be very, very annoying. And we'll see that here. But let's say I do find this nice tactic to win a pawn. There's knight takes a2, and after bishop takes, that's a deflection because the knight on e4 hangs, right? So that was a nice trick there, and I win a pawn. The knight drops back here hitting my bishop. I just go back home to b7, and trade here. Didn't love that for white, just because my knight is better on c5. Like, that just helps me activate my knight a bit more. And, you know, now I've got a 2-on-1, you know, if we trade down into an endgame, and my bishop's pretty nice. But he goes back to b1 and queen here, and there's that battery. Now, if I had a knight on f6, then this might be a bit different story, but I don't. So I do find this nice idea, and it's actually, you know, the best move, according to this engine, is knight d3, plugging the hole. My knight just jumps right in here, you know, just choking the battery, right? Just suffocating it so that it can't get to my king. And it looks weird because my knight is so loose there, but you know, I win a tempo on the queen, I get my rook to the file, and I don't know, my pieces are pretty active, and I got some stuff going on. I threaten to checkmate, make him weaken the light squares, right? And I just drop my knight back because, hey, the mate's not being threatened anymore. And I go here attacking the rook. Now he jumps in, which loses because of a couple of things. One, I can play just queen h5, right? And just kind of hang out. And if he, like, takes this, then I can, like, take on d1, right? And win. And another thing I can do after knight e4 is I can actually sack the queen. I can play bishop f1, knight takes g5, and then I can play rook takes d1. So I get 2 rooks for the queen, and the bishop's hanging here, so you gotta, like, move it. Let's say you give a check. King f8 is, you know, a thing. h3, there's not much that white can do, right? Because you're gonna take the knight here. Right? And if you drop the knight back, then just bishop h3, and it's a forced mate. There's just nothing that white can do. It's wild. Up a full queen. Can't do anything. I don't see any of that. Instead, what I do is play a bad move, which is this. Because the queen can just take the bishop here. But, you know, He doesn't play it right. He takes my rook, and now I jump in. This is kind of like a fork. I do take the bishop just because I figured the bishop was better than my knight, but my knight is really strong, and I should instead go queen d5. Queen d5. Why? Well, let's say white just goes like here, attacking my queen. Then I can play knight f3 check, and let's say like king here. Well, then we get a little windmill situation going on, and I can also go, well, what is it here? I can go knight d2, you know, and just harass the king. If the king runs like this way, then it's not going to be good. So, you know, you can just pick up this here. But anyway, getting sidetracked. What actually happened in the game is I took the bishop on b1. The rook took, and I got to, you know, to about a minute at this point, and my opponent's at 3 minutes, so it's a little bit of a scramble, and we're both just kind of making moves. I'm up a pawn, and, you know, I stay up a pawn in the rook endgame, and eventually I push my pawn up the board, and I am winning if I start pushing the second passed pawn that I have, but, you know, 8 seconds, not super familiar with the rook endgame, and I start going the wrong way. I was like, let me go this way, before I even realized, oh yeah, I have this. What's funny is that he lost on time, but this is a draw because of king g5. And even though I can queen and be up a rook, this is a draw because there's no way to stop the pawn, which is really heckin' annoying. You go here, the king just goes here, and then you like give a check, and there's no way. You have to, you know, release the stalemate, and it's just a draw. But he ran out of time, so I win yet another game, hopping into the next one. This is game 5 out of 8. If you're still here, good job. Got a good attention span. Proud of you. Now, I'll try and fly through these. I think one of these is going to go really quick. It's not this one, though. We'll see. I'm at 1825 against the 1772. We got e4, c6, d4, d5, Caro Kann. We get an exchange Caro. We develop some pieces. And, you know, a little back and forth here with the bishops is you know, fine. I guess since he wasted time, I shouldn't waste time. I should instead just play like h6 right away, and then maybe queen b6, saying, hey, what are you doing? But instead I was like, let me just go back. Yeah, he develops, I castle. Bring the rook to the c-file, gain some space over here on the queen side, and queen a5. I'm looking to get in, play b4, and have a good time. So I kick the bishop a little bit. He actually trades, which is good for me, because now I have the bishop pair. But I do, you know, have to trade this off a little bit. But I get to play b4, which is a bad move, because of knight h5, which he plays. And this loses. Bishop g4 loses because of queen g3, x-raying with a mate threat. So even though I can like boom boom and like I don't know, like drop back to try and defend, there's f4, and I can't take it or I get mated. And yeah, there's just no way to save the bishop. And also this is very scary as well. So you know, it's bad. But my opponent doesn't follow through correctly. Instead goes here looking for this mate instead of the queen knight mate. But this allows me to play g6, and my opponent thinks he's clever and finds a tactic. Because if I take, I get mated. And that was very scary. But the thing when you have like 2 hanging pieces, it can get a little sticky. Because my opponent leaves the rook there and the knight. I go here to defend g6, by the way. And you can't do this. You can't just leave both pieces to die because, well, you know, knight e7 defends g6, so I can just take this and then just drop the queen back. So if you try to do something funny, it doesn't work because there's no mate. The queen defends h7, right? So, yeah, just flew a little too close to the sun there, got burned, and the position opens up a bit. I just defend myself, and he tries to go all in, but just doesn't work. I end up getting this check and forcing queen trade, you know? If you take, and then I'm also going to pick up the bishop and just be completely winning. And if you don't, then I'm just going to take your queen and just kind of chill, right? King h8. And yeah, you can go here, but, you know, I can counterattack, or I can just like move here. Yeah, so of course this runs into some weird stuff, but I'm kind of making this up as I go. I didn't analyze past this point because the game ended there. So another game in the books here, and let's see what we have in game, what's this? 7? No, that's a lie. That's a lie. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is game 6. Game 6. We're getting there. We're getting close. Now I'm playing with the black pieces here, and we get a little Queen's Gambit declined with a weird move order. Also, the dark squared bishop is within the pawn chain, so that's a bit strange. A6, because I want to play B5, kick the bishop, and fiend kettle my bishop. I really like this setup with A6, B5, kicking the light squared bishop after taking on C4, and then getting my bishop to the long diagonal. I really like this setup, because you also get a very natural C5. And I end up taking, this was strange, playing E4 because he realized his bishop had to get out, but I take, and I do get my bishop out, which apparently I should have just gone to D6, but whatever. I'd go here, drop back, and castle. Figured I was chilling here. And he plays E5, positional and, inaccuracy, I guess, because it just allows my knight to jump into D5, which was previously controlled by the pawn, right? So pushing it just allows me to jump in and get a very nice piece in the center. And then this also weakens the dark squares, around the king. So that's a bit strange. I just jump my queen in here, ready to start creating some havoc. So he takes, but now my knight's jumping into C4, right? I play rook here, setting up a pin like this. Queen just moves, but hey, I take, and I jump my knight in C4, hit the queen again, and then I drop my queen back just to kind of control some squares over here. There was some funny business. Also, maybe I can eventually, exploit the weakness of the dark square diagonal for the king. He kicks me back, but that's fine. My knight just reroutes to D5. The rook gets in. Don't care. I'm going to counterattack. Now, I'm also low on time, but so is he. So a few moves later, he actually just lost on time, which is wild. I thought he would at least trade and kind of see what happens from there. I'm not sure what I would have done here, to be honest. I would have had to think for a moment. I'm probably not playing F5, like the computer's telling me to. Maybe H3. Maybe... What is this saying? Rook F2. Oh, it's white to move. Silly. But yeah, G6, I might have been playing... Oh, it was saying for white to play F5 there. Yeah, that would have been scary, right? King getting opened up a little bit. So I'm not sure why he didn't go ahead and take the rook there, but yeah, that's another win. So that brings us to game 7. 1838 is the rating against a 1674. And this game goes quick. We get a 2 knights scotch, I think it is, with an early D4, sacking a pawn because I get E5, kick the knight. Now, usually the knight jumps into G5, and then you can either castle or play Queen E2 there, but he tries pinning. This doesn't work. This is just bad. This is bad, because now your bishop's stuck, and your queen is on the file with the king, and I can just castle. And he falls for this, which just loses, because I get to take and play rook E1, and yeah, you're pinned. So he has to jump the knight in here, but I play F3. Which is apparently not the right way to win. I should be playing F4. Hitting the queen drops back, somewhere. Let's say to E7. And I can go knight D2 piling on. But then there's F5. But then you can take, and then take on D4. And then this is the way you should exploit it. You don't even win the piece, but you just have such a dominant position. The king is not going to survive. So that's the way I should have done. But hey, winning a free piece, nothing wrong with that. Also, he blunders. You can go D5, adding a defender, or F5 even. Maybe would have been better, but plays bishop D6, thinking, hey, there's a mate. But I just take, and you're pinned. So he played it out a little bit longer, but eventually we get the win. Okay. Game 8 here. Game number 8. This was the last rapid game I played, and the last one we'll take a look at. D4. D5. Another Queen's Gambit declined. A3, knight F6, knight C3. All standard. Yeah, I take on C4 here. Why not? E4, okay, got to break the pin so I don't lose the knight. Apparently I can go knight here, and if this, then you can play like h6 and leave this hanging. But this is just like a bit strange. Apparently this is like not good because you just get really active, I guess, and you're actually up a pawn in this line. But anyway, whatever. I don't love letting the pawn march forward when my knight is pinned, so I broke the pin. The computer can shame me all it wants. Takes, which was strange, because why are people trading this knight off? Why are people just giving me the bishop pair? I don't know. The bishop comes out, but I just win a pawn. That's a free pawn. Thank you very much. And I play this, hitting the bishop. I get to play c5, right? I got a lot of space. And also, you're trying to hope for, like, you know, I play this, then this is, you know, bad, right? Because the bishop is hit and there's a mate threat, but I'm not going to fall for that. So instead, I just take the knight with, I hit the queen, force it to move, and then I take this with check. If you take with the queen, then I get rook d1, king d1, right? And the king is stuck in the center. You take with the pawn, well, it's the same problem. Your king is stuck in the center. So the knight jumps in. I'm developing. I reroute a little bit, and then he gets desperate and sacks a bishop here. Now I'm only up 1 point of material, right? But the king is stuck in the center, and his position's very sad. So he gets desperate, and he thinks there's a Greek gift. But the problem is that there's no Greek gift because the queen doesn't get to h5. Queen doesn't get to h5 because it's here. So there's just nothing after this. You know, I just win a pawn and force the queen trade. And here he abandoned the game, which is, you know, pretty much a resignation. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he abandoned it. Some of these guys did. Sometimes they just abandon the game because they're mad that you beat them. So instead of resigning like a normal person, they just kind of leave it. But anyway, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you as always. Do appreciate it. It does feel good to win 8 games in a row. We'll see if I can make that 9 or 10. But I anticipate I'll probably start losing some games pretty soon. But anyway, thank you for making it to the end. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and have a great rest of your day.